For more than 700 years, a secret passageway has been hiding in plain sight, built into the ancient walls of the Vatican. It's an 800-meter-long elevated corridor, a lifeline for popes during their most desperate hours. This passage is a silent witness to some of the most turbulent moments in the history of the papacy. But what if this corridor is more than just a convenient escape route? What if it is the first thread in a web of secrets reaching into the most guarded corners of the world's smallest state? What was it truly built to protect? And what other passages, palaces, and vaults lie hidden beneath the cobblestones of Vatican City? Today, we're not just looking at a wall. We are exploring the centuries of secrecy it represents. We restarting with the Passetto di Borgo to understand the mysteries that lie at the very heart of the Vatican. Because the real secret isn't the tunnel itself, it's what it connects to and what it was built to defend. To grasp the scale of the Vatican's secrets, you have to begin with the Passetto di Borgo. This isn't some dusty, subterranean tunnel. It's a fortified, elevated corridor stretching for about half a mile. Its origins trace back to the 9th century defensive walls of Pope Leo IV, but it was constructed in its current form in 1277 by Pope Nicholas III. The purpose was brutally simple: to connect the Apostolic Palace in the Vatican to the formidable fortress of Castel Sant'Angelo on the banks of the Tiber River. It was a private, defensible highway that could mean the difference between life and death for the head of the Catholic Church. From the street, it blends into the ancient fortifications, easily missed by a casual tourist, but it's there. Inside, it's a narrow, stone-floored passage designed for speed and defense, not for comfort. This was for running for your life. And it has been used for exactly that. The Passetto's most famous trial by fire came on May 6, 1527, during the tragic sack of Rome. A mutinous army serving the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V descended on the city, and the Pope's Swiss Guard made a heroic, but doomed, last stand on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica, where most of them were massacred. As the slaughter unfolded, Pope Clement VII was rushed from his private chapel to the entrance of the Passetto. He fled along the narrow corridor, likely shielded by a cloak to avoid enemy gunmen below. He made it to the safety of Castel Sant'Angelo, where he remained a virtual prisoner for 6 months, eventually paying an enormous ransom. The Pope survived, but only because of this secret passage. In a sign of mourning for the city's devastation, Clement VII grew a beard, a practice that broke with canon law, but was emulated by several popes who followed him. Another pope, Alexander VI of the notorious Borgia family, used it to escape an invasion by the King of France in 1494. And of course, legend whispers that the Borgia Pope used the passage for more clandestine purposes, like slipping out for secret rendezvous. For centuries, the Passetto remained one of the papacy's most practical secrets. It has only recently been opened for special guided tours. But this corridor, this physical proof of papal power and vulnerability, begs the question: if this is the passage we know about, what others remain hidden? To understand what else might be out there, we have to go deeper. The Passetto di Borgo proves the Vatican's historical reliance on secret routes and fortifications. But what if a secret isn't just a tunnel, but an entire forgotten palace? For every documented corridor, there are whispers of a larger, hidden world, a reality confirmed by a stunningly recent discovery. It didn't happen in some dusty archive, but under a busy city square. In the lead-up to the 2025 Jubilee, as construction crews were digging in Rome's Piazza San Giovanni in Laterano, they hit something unexpected. It wasn't a pipe or a cellar. It was the massive, fortified walls of a medieval complex that had been lost to history for centuries: the Patriarchium. This is an extraordinarily important find because for nearly 1,000 years before the papacy moved to Vatican Hill, this was the center of the Catholic world. From the 9th to the 13th century, this sprawling palace served as the papal residence and the nerve center of the church. Archaeologists found that its walls were defensive, built to protect the papacy, not just from foreign invaders like Saracen raiders, but also from Rome's own powerful aristocratic families, who were constantly fighting for influence. When the popes eventually relocated to the Vatican, the old Lateran palace fell into disuse and was eventually built over, its memory preserved only in old texts. Its rediscovery confirms that the ground beneath Rome is a layered cake of history. It proves that entire centers of power can be buried and forgotten. The Passetto isn't an anomaly. It's part of a long tradition of popes using architecture for protection. And if a whole palace can disappear, it forces us to ask, what else is still down there, waiting for a construction crew to accidentally find it? If you find these hidden histories as fascinating as I do, take a moment to subscribe and click the notification bell. We have so many more mysteries to uncover together, from lost tombs to ancient conspiracies, and you won't want to miss what's next. Your support helps us dig deeper into the stories that history forgot. The Passetto was designed to protect a living pope, but one of the Vatican's most profound secrets surrounds the death of the very first pope, Saint Peter the Apostle. For this, we must journey below the marble floors of St. Peter's Basilica, into a place far older than the magnificent building we see today. We're going to the Vatican Necropolis, the city of the dead. For centuries, tradition held that St. Peter was crucified in the Circus of Nero, which once stood on Vatican Hill, and buried in a simple grave nearby. When Emperor Constantine built the first St. Peter's Basilica in the 4th century, he supposedly placed the main altar directly over the apostle's tomb. But for 1,500 years, there was no physical proof. Then, during the Second World War, Pope Pius XII authorized a top-secret excavation beneath the basilica. For 10 years, archaeologists worked in the dark, and what they found was astonishing. Directly beneath the basilica was not just a tomb, but an entire Roman street of the dead. A sprawling necropolis filled with pagan and early Christian mausoleums dating to the 1st century AD, a perfectly preserved slice of ancient Rome. The team zeroed in on a spot directly beneath the high altar, a place that had clearly been revered for centuries. They found a simple monument surrounded by a wall covered in ancient graffiti. But a central niche, where a body might have been, was empty. It seemed the search had failed. The final clue came later, from a different niche where bones appeared to have been moved for safekeeping. Inside, wrapped in precious purple and gold cloth, were the skeletal remains of a man, aged 60 to 70, from the 1st century, a perfect match for St. Peter. Scratched into the wall was a Greek inscription, Petros Ini, Peter is within. After years of scientific study, in 1968, Pope Paul VI announced to the world that the relics of St. Peter had, in the Vatican's judgment, been identified. While some scholarly debate continues, for the Church, this was the confirmation of a foundational belief. Today, the necropolis is accessible only through highly restricted SCAVI tours, its sanctity and secrecy fiercely guarded. This reveals the deeper purpose of the Vatican's security. The Passetto protects the Pope, but the secret infrastructure it represents was ultimately built to defend the very foundation of the faith itself, the tomb of its first leader. Not all secrets are buried in earth. Some are locked away on paper. This brings us to the Vatican Apostolic Archives, more famously and misleadingly known as the Vatican Secret Archives. These archives hold over 53 miles of shelving and represent one of the most important historical repositories on the planet. The name itself has fueled endless speculation, but the Latin secretum is closer in meaning to private or personal. These are the Pope as private papers. Founded in the 17th century, the archives contain the state papers, papal correspondence, and historical records of the Church spanning 12 centuries. Access is highly restricted, granted only to qualified scholars who must undergo a rigorous application process and request specific documents in advance. This guardedness has, of course, turned the archives into a fertile ground for conspiracy theories. Do they hold suppressed gospels? Information about lost artifacts like the Ark of the Covenant? Proof of extraterrestrial contact? While those are extreme theories, the archives do contain the letters of kings and emperors, the records of the trial of the Knights Templar, and the excommunication decree against Martin Luther. In recent years, the Vatican has made efforts toward greater transparency, opening the archives of controversial popes, and formally changing the name from secret to apostolic in 2019 to dispel some of the myths. Ultimately, the archives and the Passetto are two sides of the same coin, born from the same institutional need for security and the preservation of power. The Passetto is the physical defense of the Pope's body. The archives are the intellectual defense of the Church's history and authority. One is a wall of stone, the other a wall of paper, and both protect the institution from outside threats. The mysteries of the Vatican are not a closed book. History here is a living thing, with new chapters constantly being unearthed. The ground beneath Rome is an active archaeological site where preparing for a major event can peel back another layer of time. This is exactly what is happening as Rome prepares for the 2025 Jubilee. Construction projects have led to a cascade of remarkable discoveries. Near the Vatican, excavations for an underpass have unearthed the luxurious gardens and porticos of the Emperor Caligula, dating to the 1st century A. A lead water pipe, stamped with his name, confirmed the owner. These finds paint a richer picture of what Vatican Hill was like before it became the center of Christendom, a lavish corner of imperial Rome. In another recent discovery, a different necropolis along the ancient Via Triumphalis was opened to the public. It reveals the tombs of everyday Romans' wealthy families in marble sarcophagi and poor citizens buried under simple tiles. It offers a poignant look at the ordinary people who lived and died in the shadow of what would become the Vatican. Each of these accidental discoveries reinforces a central truth. The Vatican is built upon layers of history. What we see on the surface is just the final version. Beneath it lie papal palaces, imperial gardens, and entire cities of the dead. The story is still rising from the earth, and the next shovel in the ground could reveal a secret that has been dormant for 2,000 years. Our journey started with a single corridor, the Passetto di Borgo, the Pope's escape route. But that passage is more than just a wall. It's a gateway, a symbol of a deep-seated need for security and secrecy that runs through every layer of the Vatican's existence. From that elevated path, we learned of a lost medieval palace, reminding us that entire chapters of papal history lie buried and forgotten. We descended into the sacred darkness of the Necropolis, to the tomb of St. Peter, the ultimate secret the Church is sworn to protect. We explored the intellectual fortress of the Apostolic Archives, a vault of history so vast it continues to inspire both awe and suspicion. And we've seen that this story is far from over, as the ground itself continues to give up its secrets. The Passetto isn't just an escape route. It is the physical manifestation of an institution built on layers of faith, of history, of power, and of secrets. It is the thread that, once pulled, begins to unravel a story that has captivated the world for centuries. What other secrets do you think are still waiting to be uncovered in its depths? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you want to continue exploring the world's greatest historical enigmas, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching.